The aquarium hobby is full of ideas that sound great in theory until you actually try them. I've tested a lot of those ideas myself. Some worked beautifully and others not so much. In this video, I'll share a few of those experiments with you, the ones that taught me lessons I'll never forget, so you don't have to learn them the hard way. About a year ago, I decided to build my own DIY canister filter using a regular 5-gallon bucket. The goal was simple. I wanted to make something cheaper than store-bought canisters, which can get pretty expensive. The idea itself wasn't bad. A submersible pump inside a sealed bucket, pulling water from the aquarium, passing through layers of media, and then returning clean water back to the tank. The first problem I ran into was sealing the bucket. I used a gamma lid, but the pressure was just too strong, and no matter what I did, it would leak. Eventually, I wrapped the threads with Teflon tape, and that finally stopped the leaks. For a while, it worked great, but new problems started popping up. Every time I turned off the pump, water would keep flowing into the bucket, causing it to swell from the pressure. So I added a couple of taps to shut off the water manually when I turned off the pump. That solved one issue, but not the whole problem. Because what if the power went out while I wasn't home? To fix that, I installed solenoid valves that will automatically close when the power shut off, and that worked too. The problem was, with every fix, the cost kept going up. By the end, my cheap DIY canister filter was also kinda pricey. Was it worth it? I'm not sure. It worked, but it kinda defeated the whole point. If you decide to try it, let me know how it goes. Maybe you'll find a smarter way to make it work. I tried making my own banana peel fertilizer once, just to see if it could actually replace liquid fertilizers in a planted aquarium. There are a few ways to make it. You can dry the peels and crush them into powder, or ferment them into a liquid. I decided to go with fermentation, since it's supposed to release more nutrients into the water. The logic made sense. Banana peels are full of potassium and phosphorus, both important for plant growth. And when I started using it, the plants didn't react badly. They looked healthy, nothing melted, and there was no algae bloom. It definitely worked, but not in the way I expected. The fertilizer was incredibly mild. It kept plants alive and healthy, but growth slowed down noticeably compared to my regular fertilizers. It was like switching from a full meal to a light snack. Still fine, but not enough for high growth things. On top of that, I had to make a new batch every week since it didn't store well. And after a while, that got tiring. So yes, it worked. It's safe, natural, and good for light feeding. But if you like vibrant growth, fast recovery after trimming, or intense color, it's just not enough. In the end, I went back to bottled fertilizers, but I don't regret trying it. It helped me understand just how important nutrient balance really is. If you guys are enjoying the video, remember to like and subscribe. It helps the channel grow and get to more people who love this hobby. This one wasn't really an experiment I meant to do, but the results were too interesting not to share. I had a 75-gallon aquarium that was struggling with algae. It was covering everything, and I knew I didn't have enough plants to compete with it. So I decided to add a bunch of Reishi, since it's great at absorbing excess nutrients, and usually helps bring algae under control. The Reishi that I used came with a few bladder snails. I wasn't too worried about it. I figured a couple of snails wouldn't hurt. But within just a few weeks, the population exploded. There were snails everywhere. They completely took over the aquarium, and I thought I had made a huge mistake. Then something strange happened. The algae started disappearing. I did a bit of research and found out that bladder snails reproduce based on food availability. Since the tank had been full of algae, there was plenty of food for them, and they wasted no time. They started eating immediately. The more they ate, the cleaner the tank got, and by the end of the week, the aquarium looked completely different. Now, I don't recommend using bladder snails as an algae solution. Algae problems always have a cost, and you should find and fix that first. But it was a reminder that even something as annoying as a snail invasion can sometimes bring unexpected balance. My tank went from being overrun by algae to to almost crystal clear in about a week. Just something to keep in mind before you panic about a few extra snails. Remember that 75-gallon tank I just mentioned? The one that was always covered in algae and full of bladder snails? Well, that same tank ended up teaching me one of the most important lessons I've ever learned about aquarium cycling. A friend gave me that tank a while back, complete setup, fish and all. I found a new home for the fish because my plan was to use it for growing plants, and goldfish are not exactly great with plants. But soon I realized the tank wasn't ideal for that. It was too deep, and the light I had just couldn't reach the bottom properly. So I decided to break it down and replace it with two smaller tanks instead. Here's where things went wrong. The 75-gallon only had a small canister filter and a couple of sponge filters. Still, despite all the algae, the water parameters were perfect. Ammonia and nitrite were always at 0. So when I set up the new tanks, I thought I was being smart. I reused the same water, split the filters between both aquariums, and expected them to be cycled immediately. But within days, ammonia and nitrite went through the roof. I had to do daily water changes for nearly 2 weeks until both tanks stabilized again. That's when I realized my mistake. The real filtration in that 75-gallon wasn't happening in the filters. It was happening in the glass, the substrate, the rocks. Every single surface was part of that cycle. So, if you ever move tanks, don't assume the filters are doing all the work. The whole aquarium is the filter, and that's what keeps everything stable. Bladder snails are interesting creatures. Some people don't mind them, others absolutely can't stand them. And to be honest, I get it. They multiply really fast, and once you have a few, it can feel like they are everywhere. If you are okay with that, great. They are harmless and even helpful in small numbers. But if you are not, they can quickly become a headache. I had a couple of tanks where I really didn't want any bladder snails, so I decided to try building my own snail trap to get rid of them. I grabbed a small plastic cup, poked a few holes in the sides near the bottom, dropped in some algae wafers, and closed the lid. The idea was simple. The snails would crawl in for the food, and I'll just pull the cup out once it was full. In theory, it made perfect sense, but in practice, it didn't work at all. The snails completely ignored the trap and kept roaming around the tank like nothing happened. I tried leaving it overnight, moving it around, even using different foods, but the result was always the same. Maybe there are snail traps out there that actually work, but the one I made definitely wasn't one of them. So if you're dealing with snails, focus on prevention instead. Dip new plants, avoid overfeeding, and keep your tank balanced. That's the best snail trap you'll ever have. Still, I don't regret trying it. Sometimes you learn more from what doesn't work than from what does. Every experiment teaches you something, even if it doesn't go as planned. Some of these ideas failed completely, but each one helped me understand my aquariums a little better, and that's what keeps this hobby so fun.